official bell, we can start at 6 o'clock. It's my pleasure to call this annual reorganization meeting to order for the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School Board. Tonight, our first order of business is to select a chairperson for the board. Shortly, I will call for nominations regarding the chair. I'll accept a nomination in a second for anybody who is offered. I will call for discussion. At the end of discussion, I will seek a vote. If that vote is in the affirmative and the chair is selected, I will pass the meeting over to the chair, and we will repeat the process for a vice chair and a secretary, and can then have a discussion on committees and things of that nature. Okay, so at this time, I would call for a nomination for the school board chair for the Hollis Cooperative School Board.
I would like to nominate Holly.
Second.
I have a nomination, motion, and a second. Hearing nothing else, I'll open the floor for any discussion. Anybody have any comment or anything?
Yeah, I just want to say that I feel like, 3 years on the board, and Holly has been the chair and has just a proven track record for leadership. I think you have a very level head. I think that you run a great meeting. You have a really good balance for people, so everybody has the opportunity to speak, but you also know how to guide and wrap things up. And I think at this point, things are running great, and would like to see that continue.
Thank you, Kate.
Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Nope.
5-0. Holly is elected chair, and I'll turn it over to her to repeat the process for vice chair and then secretary.
Thank you so much. So at this point, we need a nomination for vice chair of the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School Board.
I'd like to nominate Kate Stoll.
Great.
No, second.
Great. So,
Discussion.
yeah.
I think Kate's been on the board for 3 years, and I think she's definitely ready for some different roles, and I'd like to see her move into the role of vice chair. She's been doing a great job.
Great. Anyone else? All right, all in favor? 5-0. Kate, you have to move.
Like right now?
Yeah.
But I'm settled.
I know.
Take some care.
Take the camera.
Maybe it's easier if I move.
By 1 minute. Great. Oh, yeah, thank you. All right, so next, oh boy, this one's gonna be fun. Okay.
Who's not here?
So, we need a nomination for secretary of the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School Board. And Kate's now the vice chair. I'm declaring her the vice chair, Kate. So that's what I'm supposed to say, that's what the outline says. So we need a secretary. How do we go about that?
I'll do it if nobody else wants it, but
Okay, so
I nominate Cindy.
to be the secretary. Great. I second that, yeah.
Okay.
Am I allowed to second? I am seconding, sure.
I think
Okay.
Cindy will be phenomenal.
Okay, all those in favor? 5-0. So Cindy, thank you very much for stepping up and doing that.
Thank you.
Okay, so now Cindy is secretary. And then the only other thing that we absolutely have to decide tonight is the manifests. Kate and I have been signing them. Is there anyone else who has a desire to sign manifests? They're done electronically now, so you don't even have to go into the office. But it's incredibly important to be right on time with them. They send them and they need them by 2 days later. So you have to be able to review them quickly. Is there anyone who wants to do it?
You need 2, right?
We need 2, and we usually have an alternate as
Two
well.
and an alternate.
2 and
And an alternate, okay.
Yeah.
I don't mind doing it.
Okay.
I've done it a million times, so
So
it's fine.
Okay, Rob. And do you want to keep doing it?
I'll keep doing it if anybody
Okay.
else wants to, sure.
I can alternate
You
again.
don't mind
I
being,
mean,
yeah, I'm happy to take that off my plate, so, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not like it's on, but, so Rob,
for
Man,
another
and
thing.
Kate will be the manifest signers with, Cindy as the alternate. And then what? Rob and Kate with Cindy as the alternate are gonna sign manifests. We don't have to vote on that, that's just like
That's correct.
it's an appointment.
And I'll get signatures from the 3 of you, and then Linda, who is out of town tonight has also provided you each with a memo with all the dates for the entire year of when they'll need to be approved, so you can kind of plan your lives around signing the manifest.
Excellent. All right, so that's that. All right, and then the rest of the committees, that was my only question I was gonna ask, like, for advice. So, we need to decide on BudCom and policy and all of those committees, I'll ask the board. Is that something people are prepared to do tonight, or would you prefer to, like, mull over the options and get back to me, and I can appoint you via email? Is that allowed?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Just because I think, well, Tom's not here and Beth's not here, and I'd like to know if they want to keep, like, Beth has been, policy has been Beth, Krista, and I don't know if Beth wants to continue, I don't know if you want to continue. I know BudCom is on the fourth Thursday. I do think we have some people who don't want to be on BudCom. People
Or can't, or shouldn't.
The two of us
on
don't want to.
BudCom, but, so that is a Thursday night commitment. Isn't it Thursdays? It's like the fourth Thursday.
fourth Thursday,
So
so
there's that.
schedules.
We
But
also
it gets
have,
changed a lot because of
Right.
the holidays too.
we also have, potentially we may have RSEC. We don't know if we will. And then we have the IPC committees, the steering committee, the grading and assessment committee, and the advisory committee. I don't know if people want to continue, so I'd like to get feedback from everybody via email. So my only question is, what do we do about this month's BudCom and this month's, like, a May policy meeting? Can we continue with our old appointments? Okay,
Yes.
Yeah, you didn't appoint anybody new. so
okay. So we
As long
can
as they're still on the board.
Right, so let's continue with our old appointments, and then I'll send out an email and ask for people to kind of weigh in and give me feedback. And do I need a motion to make those appointments, or?
Once you have them next month, you'll bring them in, and
Okay.
then the board will approve them as a
Okay.
block of
All right. Great.
appointments.
Terrific, so we'll do them next month, terrific. All right, so that leads me to, let's see, I have to go through. Are we moving to, we're gonna do nominations, resignations, and correspondence, and then we're gonna go into non-public?
That's correct.
Okay.
But before we do that, if we can just indulge for 1 second, Tim, could you introduce our newest rep so the board members know Austin?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You guys know Austin. Austin's a senior this year. Gracie, who is not here tonight, or not here yet, she will be. She's coaching right now, I think. She'll be here shortly. Gracie Dortona is a junior. She'll be taking over Austin Kump's spot, who just wrapped up a game. First win of the year. Yep. So Austin Kump, senior, graduating student body president and school board rep.
We have new board members, so I wanted to make
Yep.
sure everybody understood.
Yep.
Why Austin's
But
here? Thank you.
Gracie will be here shortly. She did email me. She said she was going to be a little bit late.
And Austin, you'll be here next month, right?
Yeah.
You think, or you'll try to be
I
here
should- I
next
should
month,
be
but
here.
you're scheduled to be here through the end of June, right? Or through the end of May, and then in June, you won't be here, because you'll be
know, I'll make
graduating
contact.
So out of here.
in June, all right, okay.
Getting back to nominations, resignations, and correspondence, I have a couple letters tonight. The first one is Dear Principal Gazone, please accept this letter as my formal resignation as health teacher at Hollis Brookline High School effective June 30th, 2023. As an alum of Hollis Brookline School District, it was my great honor to join SAU 41 as faculty. Over the last 20 years, I have had the pleasure of working with an exceptionally talented and dedicated staff, many of whom have become dear friends. My work here has provided me with many great opportunities, and I have many fond memories to take with me as I move on to new opportunities. Please let me know how I can be helpful in the transition to a new health teacher. I wish you and Hollis Brookline nothing but the best, and that is from Erin White.
Oh, okay. So I need a motion to accept the resignation of Erin White as health teacher with the effective date of June 30th,
Correct.
2023.
So moved.
Moved by Kate. I need a
Second.
second by Krista. Okay, any comments? All those in favor? 6-0.
Dear Mr. Gazone, please
Oh,
accept...
5-0, sorry, 5-0.
Dear Mr. Gazone, please accept this letter as my formal resignation effective June 30th, 2023. I will complete my current contract here, but will not be renewing my contract for 23-24, and that is from Alyssa McCormick, high school French teacher.
Okay, Okay, so I need a motion to accept the resignation of Alyssa McCormick as the high school French teacher with an effective date of June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Moved by Kate,
Second.
second by Krista. All those, any discussion? All those in favor? 5-0.
And the last one, dear Mr. Gazone, this letter serves as my wish to resign from my position at Hollis Brookline High School, effective June 30th, 2023, and that's from Suzanne Joyce, the school counselor.
Okay, so I need a motion to accept the resignation of Suzanne Joyce as a school counselor at the high school with an effective date of June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Moved by Cindy,
Second.
second by Kate. Any discussion? All those in favor? 5-0.
And then lastly, this is just informational, I don't need a vote, but as the board is aware, Adam Wilcox was on a leave with us. He'll be returning next fall in a role of .6, which will work very well with our science schedule, so we're excited to welcome Adam back as he rejoins the high school staff.
That's exciting news. That's great news.
Yep.
We're excited to hear that.
That's
Awesome.
it for, I believe that,
Does that cover it all?
I think it does.
All correspondence and resignations, and there's no hires at this point? No. Okay, great. So we're going to need to move into non-public. And so we have a member of the public here. I just want to let you know that we will be opening the floor for public comment, but it won't be for another, probably until 7:15, 7:20 kind of thing.
You stay and we leave.
We leave. You can stay. You can chill out in the middle school library. Yeah, okay.
Grab a
So
book.
we need to make a motion first. We need to make a motion that the board by roll call go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A:3, 2A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee. Is there anything else, or is that it?
That's it.
That's it. Okay, I need that motion, please.
So moved.
Moved by Krista,
Second.
second by Rob. And now I need a roll call vote. I'll start with Cindy.
Cindy, aye.
Krista, aye.
Tom, are you here? We're going into non-public. Do you want to take the vote, or do you want to abstain? Okay. Holly, aye.
Kate, aye.
Rob, aye.
Rob, aye. Okay, so that's 6-0. All right, so we're. on. We are back. Are we back on? Thank you. Hi, Gracie. This is Mr. Mann. He's our new school board rep, so, or Grace, actually. Grace Rotona. So at this point, I need to appoint a process observer. Is there anyone who wants to do that? Hello? Somebody? Well, Cindy's already doing secretary job. Tom, would you be willing to be process observer? And then I think now that I will make a list and I'll just assign us. Is that okay? I'll just make a little, yeah, so that we don't have to have this conversation every month. I'm writing myself a note. Make a list. All right. And then agenda adjustments. My only question is, we have policy GADA on as a policy to go over. However, the policy server is down, and Chris is not here, so when she comes back, I'm gonna ask her. I don't believe we have that to look at, so we may have to remove that.
Wasn't in the packet?
It wasn't in the packet. I'm gonna ask Krista when she comes in.
Right.
Yeah, so Krista, just a quick question for you. Welcome back. Policy GADA, you couldn't get it off the
No, I
server, right?
couldn't. So
So
can
we're
we
gonna,
table that?
we're gonna take it off the
Thank you.
Which one
agenda
is
then.
that?
Yeah.
All right,
The only adjustment I have in Tim's principal's report,
yeah,
he has the field trip for
Okay.
robotics,
okay.
and we just need to take a motion on that. Go ahead.
So that is not happening. I just heard back from them. They did qualify, but they're not going to attend. They're not going to Worlds this
Okay,
year.
great.
So,
We don't-
but we did want it on just in case,
Okay,
but they
so we
decided.
don't need to make an item on that.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
great. Okay, so at this point, we need to approve some minutes. We're gonna look first at the minutes from the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School Board on January 18th with the following amendments. Page 4, line 37, replace teacher with teach. Page 6, line 34, replace the with they. And page 7, line 25, replace the Roman number of 2 with the Roman numeral 3. So I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved?
Moved by Krista. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Kate. Are there any comments on those minutes? Okay, all those in favor? 5 in favor, all those opposed, and abstentions. So 501, motion passes. I also need to look at the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School Board first non-public of January 18th with the amendment, page 1, line 2, replace 223 with 2023. I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Krista's making the motion. I need a second.
Second.
Kate is seconding. Is there any discussion on those? All those in favor? 5 opposed and abstentions. 501, motion carries. I need to make a motion for the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School Board second non-public of January 18th, 2023 with the following amendment. Page 1, line 2, replace 223 with 2023. I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Krista, and seconded by Kate. Is there any discussion? All in favor? 5 opposed, abstentions. 501, motion carries. And then at the joint meeting of the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School Board and the Co-op Budget Committee of February 2nd, 2023, the following amendments are offered. Page 2, line 26, insert to the public following return. Page 2, line 30, replace change with decrease. Page 4, line 54, replace so with of. Page 14, line 43, delete to before the extent. And page 17, line 34, correct the spelling of moot. I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Krista, second.
Second.
Second by Cindy. What is that? All those in favor? Oh, was there any discussion? No, all those in favor. 5, 0, and an abstention? 1, 5, 0, 1. Oh my gosh, it's a lot of minutes, okay. The Hollis Brookline Cooperative School District public hearing on the FY '24 budget of February 2nd. The following amendments were offered, correct page numbering in the header, and then page 2, line 30, replace $15 an hour with $15 hourly rate. I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
So moved by Krista, seconded by Kate. Is there any discussion? All in,
What's the difference?
I don't know. I think it's,
Didn't like our, the way it was written.
I think,
Dawn just, I thought it was clearer.
yeah, Dawn wanted to
Many
change.
years down the road, she felt it would be clearer that way.
Right.
Okay.
She made the amendment, so, all those in favor? 5 opposed, and abstentions. 501, motion carries. Okay, we've got the public hearing for the petition warrant articles of February 16th, 2023. So the only person who can vote on this is me? Okay. So I need a motion to accept as presented. Can you motion if you weren't there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I need a motion to accept as presented.
So moved.
Krista.
Second.
Second, Cindy, and all in favor, Holly. And all opposed, and any abstentions? Okay, that would be 1,
What if
0,
you abstained?
6. Right. And then we have the public hearing on the bond of February 20th, 2023. We have the correct page number heading was the only amendment, and Cindy, you weren't here for that. So I need a motion to accept as presented, no, as amended, sorry.
So moved.
Krista, I keep looking at you, Krista. Second?
Sure.
Kate? Okay. All those in favor? Discussion on that? All those in favor? Okay, that would be 4. She's got it right here. No, nobody's opposing, right? And then abstentions. So it's 402. Thank you. And then we have how many public hearings do we have? Public hearing petition warrant
How many petition warrant
articles.
articles did we have?
Yes, February 20th, 2023. So this was on the petition warrant articles. Williams and Van Conen were absent, so we need to accept a motion to accept as presented.
I don't remember being in any petition warrant.
So this was the bond one. So on the 20th, we had a bond public hearing, and then right after that, we had the petition warrant article public hearing. And you were here.
Which petition warrant article?
On the 2 that required a public hearing, there were 2 that
Oh,
required a
so that
public
was
hearing.
The Hollis meeting, so to speak, the
Yes.
Hollis
It
version.
was like
Got it,
yeah.
Got it.
Okay, so all those in favor?
So moved. We did-
Thank you, sorry. Krista
Second.
moves and Kate seconds, and I need all those in favor. 4, 0, and abstentions, 2. Great. Oh my gosh, there's still more.
I think you were there, Rob.
And then there was
was
the
there.
Hollis, oh yes, and then we also did have a school board meeting on that night, in the beginning of it, so we had a quick school board meeting to go over the warrant. So that was the February 20th school board meeting, and we have the following amendments. Page 2, line 4, replace A with he, and page 4, line 4, replace extensive with extensively. I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Krista. And a second? Kate, your
Sure,
second, thank
yep.
you. Please just, okay. All those in favor? 4, and opposed, and abstentions, 2. Great. So how late are we? Okay, we're good. We're a little late. Sorry about that, people. So at this point, we're going to open the floor for public input. Technically, the floor will be open for 30 minutes, but once we finish with the folks here who want to speak, we'll move on with our meeting. But if anyone comes in between now and 7:58, we will allow them to speak when it's convenient for us during the meeting, but they will be allowed to speak. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address for the record. We limit all public comment to 3 minutes per person, and we hope for respectful commentary. Also, just for people to understand, public input is not a time for back and forth. It is a time for the board to simply take your input, and we'll consider it. Many times, we might address it later on in the meeting as the agenda calls for. So at this point, at 7:29, I will open the floor for 30 minutes of public input. I assume there's some public input.
Hello, my name is Agatha Conley. I live at 14 Sawmill Road in Hollis, and I'm the mother of Rebecca Conley, who is a 7th grader, and I'm here to support dugouts for the HBMS softball team. They currently have 15 students, and there are also U8, U10, U12 teams coming up in the rec field. Rebecca has played softball for 5 years and 1 year t-ball, and at all of those fields she had dugouts. And this field, she was very surprised last year. We came up here and we saw there were no dugouts for the HBMS, that HBMS field, and she asked why there weren't dugouts when the boys have the dugouts for baseball. And now she's on the team, and every day they walk by the boys' dugouts and they wonder why the girls have a metal bench. here to support that. I understand the athletic director, Brian Bumpus, has that in his report, that the school might be looking into that. Just wanted to say that dugouts are just a routine part of softball and baseball fields. They're just a normal part. They protect the students from the sun, provide shelter from the rain. The gloves can't get wet, and the balls can't get wet as they can in other sports. So please keep that into your consideration, that it's just a routine budgetary or field maintenance process, not a massive upgrade to a field, not anything that would cost an astronomical amount of money for the kids to put in. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you for all the effort you put into our school system here. And just wanted to say that, and I guess for Rebecca's sake, my question would be, when would those be done? I understand the budget process can take a little while with getting different contractors and their bids, but I wonder if this would be done by the time she's an 8th grader, or would this be a 3-year process? I would hope this would be done maybe by the fall, so that the kids could use them next year.
Thank you, Agatha. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Andrea Seddon. I live at 50 Wheeler Road, and I also have a 7th grader on the softball team, and I've coached her team for 5 years, and like Kathy said, every field that we ever travel to or play here in town has dugouts. And as a mother of daughters, they ask, well, why do the boys have dugouts and we don't have dugouts? So we're wondering if it was a budgetary reason, a equity reason, an afterthought. I know this is not a back and forth moment, but these are questions we've been debating. And it's also a sense of pride, and it boosts your confidence when we go to Bedford or Goffstown or wherever we're going. We're like, ooh, nice dugouts. And it makes us feel like, they have, they must be a good team. And then we're on a metal bench. So it's a little embarrassing, and the practicality of it with keeping them protected from the weather. So we appreciate your thoughtful consideration on that.
Thank you, Andrea. Did you have something you wanted to say?
I was just-
It's not back and forth,
I'm
Tom.
not sure if it's appropriate. I was gonna say, just technicality, should we just have them for home team, or should we have them for the visitors too?
I think you're supposed to have them for both teams. Tom, that's, okay.
Evening. My name is Clint Leonard. I live at 40 Jewett Lane, and my daughter's also a 7th grader on the Hollis softball team. I'm here to support these ladies here and the softball team with requesting some consideration for some dugouts to protect the kids when they're out there playing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I've never seen this gentleman before.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I've come back so soon, but.
No, we're glad
wants-
to have you.
Glad to
But
have you
please
back.
state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Tom Enright.
He came for the candy.
On Orchard Drive.
Would you like a piece of candy? Yeah.
So I want to speak about the district meeting, because like you, I had to sit through that 5-hour meeting, and I think it's a problem. Because parents, I can't endure a 5-hour meeting. I don't have the stamina to do it. But parents can't either. They can't be away, they can't just leave their home for 5 hours to endure what we have been enduring. So this was a 5-hour meeting. The year before it was a 4.5-hour meeting. What I'm asking is just to think about this and try and turn it around and go in a different direction. So since I've complained, I need to offer solutions. So I'm going to suggest 4 ways that we can improve this meeting. First of all, I went to the Hollis meeting. They gavelled in their first article in right around half an hour. We gavelled in our first warrant article in right around an hour. There's no reason we can't gavel in our first article in half an hour. So let's do it. This is a business meeting. We're all there for one reason, and that's to act on the warrant that you present us. I want to do that, but you got to do it. You can't make me do it over 5 hours. Can't manage it. That's number one. Number two, I have never been in favor of standardizing contracts. I am in favor of standardizing contracts because it will, that's a piece that we can do once and get off the agenda. So please, standardize our labor contracts. Number three, there has been one person that has presented 13 petition warrant articles. One person. They have all failed. At this last meeting, we spent almost an hour on a petition warrant article, and it failed 2 to 1. We need to pay attention here, and they have rights, but I have rights too. I want to get through the meeting. So I think we need to be tougher on petition warrant articles. I don't see a 3-minute presentation is enough. And I think that just not favoring them, the way we've been favoring them, it's time that that happens. And the fact that we had the other 4 articles tabled this year says we're ready to turn a corner there. So let's turn that corner. Lastly, we need to take back the floor mic with supportive speakers. And I'm going to just give you a little piece of history that maybe some of you have, but 30 years ago, when we built the high school, the first 4 bond issues failed. And as one of the things we did, and one of the important things that we did as a school board, was we said we need more supportive speakers. And so there was an organized effort to make that happen. And it did happen. We lost the first 4 bond issues. The next 4 passed. I'm not saying it was because we in any way controlled the floor mic, but we did have supportive speakers there. And there's just an atmosphere that I found at this meeting when certain people get up and speak in a negative way, it puts a negative atmosphere on the meeting, and then other people are empowered to speak, and they get so turned on by the fact that they went through the first time. They come back 6, 7 times, and it's negative. And it only takes 10 or 15 of us, and I'll be one of them, but we need 10 or 15. And Tom Whalen, before he joined the budget committee, he was helpful. So we need 15 people that will make supportive comments, and people will clap, and the unsupportive comments, then they won't be so cool anymore. So those are my 4 suggestions.
Thank you, Tom.
For listening to me.
Thank you.
Next year, let's just turn it from 5 to something a little less than 5.
Hey, we did 9 hours on a lacrosse field. You forgot to mention that one, so.
Gee, I said run the-
Last, it was not a 5-hour meeting because of anything the school board or administrators did. Your presentations were excellent, to the point, excellent. So no criticism there. You played your part, but you are our leadership team, and you have to help us turn this around, and there you have it.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Tom. Okay. Is there any other, I know everybody's spoken, is there anyone else? Anyone want to get up again? Okay. So we're going to move away from public input and close the floor, but as I said, it's, technically still open until 7:59. We're going to move on to the principal and athletic reports, and I think that we will let the students go first, absolutely, so that they can leave. I mean, you're welcome to stay, but if you'd like to give us your report, that would be fantastic.
As of right now, the student council we finished up this year week, which was success. We're bringing back more spirit that I think we previously lost due to COVID, and right now we have just finalized our ideas for appreciation week with a few breakfasts here and there, and then along with some candygrams for the teachers.
Nice, thank you. Is there anything else? That's it. Okay, thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for the students?
No? Thank you.
Did you notice when you were at the middle school that you didn't have dugouts?
Yeah.
Did you play softball?
That was a big thing. I was wondering the same thing. You know, you pass by those every day, and it's just like, why don't we have those? I mean, even like up there, there is a little there's still differences, and you're still wondering why aren't we equal?
So you feel like the dugouts at the high school are not at the same level of the dugouts that are?
Yeah, we're getting funding to repaint because there's some explicit graffiti on there.
Oh, no, that's not good.
But luckily it's just the home, so you really gotta walk around to see it. But in general, like, you don't have those issues with baseball. I think it's just because it's not as respected up here at school. And we've dealt with that, especially in my group, when we were here with like names and everything. But I think the dugout situation, that definitely didn't help our situation.
Okay, that's good to know.
I don't know if this is true, and I'm just saying, it's not, I don't know if the community baseball people came together to help build those dugouts. I'm not sure, I don't remember if that was the case. It was before, they painted them. So that's why I'm saying that, because I can't imagine that it was a decision to say, we're gonna take care of baseball and forget about softball. But I certainly respect the fact, and yeah, I think we need them.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, this is my 9th year. I became aware of it through Mr. Bumpus, and I drove over and I was kind of surprised. And I go through the campus all the time. I mean, all the time. So we're going to get that taken care of. There shouldn't be any disparities, and I'm glad the parents brought it up, and I'm glad you spoke to it, because it's something that we can address and we can fix it, and we will do that.
Tom?
I'm just wondering, I forgive my ignorance, but I'm not sure which fields are which, and my concern is, are there any issues with construction due to water table in the area where they would be? Because I know we've got wetlands, and sometimes putting in dugouts, true dugouts, which require excavation, might be a problem from a terrain standpoint. And you may call them dugouts, but you may have to do something different because of the groundwater.
Yeah, Brian's on it, so
Okay.
I think in May you'll get an update from us. I just wanted people in the community to understand that I'm not sure why or when the disparity occurred, but I know this board and I know our administration, and we're gonna get that taken care of.
Is it something that is likely to be resolvable with current budget and in the time frame for the next season's need?
Yes,
Okay.
and we can address that a little bit when we go through the revenue and expense report, because I do believe we'll run a surplus, and we have a couple requests, and this would be one that I would prioritize.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much for your feedback on that. That's really helpful. You guys do not have to stay for the rest. It's up to you. Okay. I don't blame you. It's like, it's April. You were at a game. You probably want to go home and get out of here.
I would encourage Gracie to look at the packet, though, as there are some
Yes.
important items in the packet related to next year's school calendar and next year's proposed graduation date.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Moving on. Are you going to cover Mr.?
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Bumpus.
Tim will cover that. We don't know, that's what we get.
Shut me up.
Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
All right, so for Brian's report, happy to say that our girls swim team and our wrestling team defended their titles and were repeat champions this year during the winter season. Austin, who just walked out the door, was our first ever girls wrestling state champ.
I should have congratulated her, because I read that, and
Yeah.
can you,
I
can
was
you
gonna
say-
embarrass her.
Right, can you just tell her
Yeah,
that we,
so-
Yeah, next month and.
yeah, we
Tell her
extend,
that,
well,
yeah.
I have to remember, so yes, extend her congratulations,
Yep.
that's amazing.
Yep,
and
very, very
also
cool stuff.
Congratulations to all of to everyone.
And, yeah, as we talked about before, you know, as Brian is, you know, not just our AD, he also obviously works closely in the wrestling committee through the NHIAA, and the girls wrestling state championship bracket was new this year, and he was instrumental in part of that. So, really awesome to see Austin take home the title. Our spring sports are underway. My understanding is in addition to our softball win tonight, boys won 14-7, baseball won as well. So, a nice start to the spring sports. Tennis has, I believe, 2 matches under their belt, girls
Yeah,
and boys.
the boys, the girls I think have 3.
Yep, so, up and running, that is always a nice sign, during the school calendar when the fields come alive again and spring sports are underway, so, that's great to see. We sent 36 student athletes up to the NHIAA Scholar Athlete Award winners, so that is a B+ or better, in 2 sports over the course of the 4 years, so, congratulations to our 36 student athletes, who just went up last month. And some other news in athletics, Brian is looking to implement a new communication tool that will be uniform across, the goal is to have it uniform across all sports this coming year. So the name of the software is Sports U, and it's something that would simplify and make more efficient communications top to bottom and then within each team too. So looking to bring that on. Middle school basketball, both middle school basketball teams, the girls and boys, both had long runs into the playoffs, had a great successful season, and our wrestling team down here finished second in the Tri-County. So congratulations to the middle school teams. Shifting, I'll take any questions on Brian's report. Is there anything specific I can try to answer?
I see that it shows an opening for head and assistant coach for fishing. Last time we looked, the enrollments were really low on that. And we talked about potentially it going back to club sport. I'm wondering, are we still supporting that as an NHIA kind of activity? And if so, if there's going to be only a handful of people, do we need an assistant coach for 3 to 5 participants? I mean, I don't want us to automatically assume that every sport is going to be in full play every year, and that one was on our radar because of low participation. So I question that we have that opening.
Do you have a question?
I just wanted to speak to that. So so there were cuts to bass fishing, and that's based solely on the number of boats you have and the number of participants you can fit on the boat. And if they're a club, they're not able to participate in the event
Yep.
for the year. So
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 how
sort
many,
of like you
how
had
many
it as-
students can we support?
I think it's 4.
It depends on
No,
boats, too.
well, how many boats do we have? So,
We don't have boats.
I-
I think
We
I-
haven't bought a boat yet.
The co-
So the boats are provided by community members, so that kind of controls, because it's only a one-time competition. I mean, you practice in that, things that we control, but it's one state meet on one day, and that's it. That's
can you have, can you have more than, so we can only put 4 people in boats right now?
Depends on the boat.
Right now, in boats, you're saying we only have the capability of putting 4 in boats right
It
now?
depends on the boat. So
No, we have 2, they said we have 2 boats and you could put 2 people in each boat, what they just said.
No. It's saying we rely on other people to get us a boat. We don't actually have a boat at all. The boat that we've had allowed, that someone allowed us to use, allowed only 4 people to be in there, so therefore we had to cap it at 4 participants.
So what's the situation currently?
I believe the 2 openings there, the 2 vacancies, with the positions went the boats. Those who are coaching, I think,
So
provided.
do we not have a team right now?
As
Is
far
it-
as students,
It sounds like without a coach who's, or a boat, you don't have a team.
When is the season for bass fishing?
fall.
Oh, okay, I thought it was a spring one also.
Oh, sorry, no.
Yeah. So what I will do, Tom, is I'll follow up with Brian,
Yeah,
okay, and I'll ask him to try to address that in his report next month, specifically as an item pulled out.
okay. Does someone have to be a coach to be in a boat?
Yeah.
So if you want to have 3 boats, you have to have 3 coaches?
My understanding is, last year when we had a handful of kids, 2 kids would go out in the boat and 2 kids would stay ashore, and you could only fish 2 at a time based on the capacity of that boat.
Okay. I kind of question the wisdom of having this as one of our sports in the conditions we're in, because what you're describing,
This is what I'm describing is the meet. There's one state meet.
It's just literally one day, Tom.
right, but there's a lot of practice building up to it. We don't, there's.
It does seem like a sport that, I'm not sure, I
It
understand that those
doesn't, it
kids are
doesn't seem
involved,
to
but
fit with the objectives of athletics in our school environment. If we're putting all this in to only allow them to fish once, one day, that to me is not a school sport. That, now if it's a extended season with 1 points event, i.e., you can call it the tournament or the championship or whatever, but for 8 weeks, you've got kids going out, then that's fine. And if we're gonna do that, can we support it with enough activity? I'll give crew as an example. It's a club sport only because NHIAA won't let it be, but I mean, it's a big activity. The school doesn't own any boats. The club owns some boats, but it was financed by parents and financed by others. If this is an activity where there's significant interest, we should be able to find a way to let the people who want to participate in it participate. But the way it's being conducted right now doesn't seem fair, and it doesn't seem particularly viable. That's my opinion.
Okay. Moving on to the, thank you, Tom. Is there anybody else who has a comment on that? It does make me uncomfortable that we have to find a boat every year and find someone who will loan us a boat. And also the conditions of, the boat could change, like some boats, I'm sure, knowing boats, sometimes you can put 6 people on a boat, sometimes you can only put 2 people on a boat. So it feels like we're dependent on the boat and the equipment that we don't provide. So it's.
And we're paying people to use their boats.
Yeah,
because
and then the coaches. So it's a little uncomfortable, I agree. But I do understand, and there's a pretty passionate group a small group of parents and kids who really care about it, so. I gotcha. I'm hearing. Okay, Tim, who's doing Patrick's report? Are you doing that, or? Okay, good for you. Man of all hats
Yep.
today.
So, as you know, Patrick is down on his Washington DC trip with over 180 8th graders, and he was exchanging texts with him today. He informed me about they got to see the president. Said the president waved as he was passing by the HB buses and the HB students, so a once-in-a-lifetime activity for some of those kiddos. That's awesome to hear. It sounds like they went on their dinner cruise, I think last night, on the Potomac. So it sounds like the field trip has gone really well thus far. He did want me to mention that all 4 teams, not just the 2 8th grade teams on the trip, but the 7th grade teams too, also have field trips scheduled for the spring. And, a lot of the pre-pandemic types of activities have returned. They hosted a winter carnival just this past February with a variety of different games, student, staff, basketball games and whatnot. Lots of activities returning to the middle school. It looks like our robotics team, they put 3 teams into the recent meet. All 3 teams finished in the top 10. And the HBMS band also had a performance recently in March at the Large Group Festival. So I can try to answer questions about the middle school, if anyone has any questions or comments.
Do we know approximately how many students remain back in district? Or either percentage or numbers?
I think it's 10.
10?
Yeah, 188 went and 10 stayed back, and all had their unique reasons.
Pretty high
Because I
level.
know that there were some staff members that stayed back. Are they all involved with eighth graders, or are there more staff than there are students in district?
Right now, we have staff members from both 7th and 8th grade. Some of them attended the trip, so if an 8th grade teacher stayed back, they'd be covering for
Oh,
those
okay.
classes.
Got it.
I will also say that we did something new this year. We had our sixth graders from CSDA come up here today for a nice tour and discussion with teachers, and then they stayed for lunch, and Hughes students came for lunch with the CSDA sixth graders, so they ate lunch together as a new cohort, and then CSDA kids went back, and then the Hughes students stayed for that same discussion. So it was just a new and unique way to utilize our staff in an opportunity when the building was half as full, so.
Is that in addition to any formal step-up program?
Yes, yep.
That was great.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, my other comment is just to congratulate the robotics teams and I think and the band and those members that are mentioned. So yeah. And now to your report, Mr. Rizzo.
All right, so it has been a little while since my last report, so want to celebrate a lot of student accomplishments. First off, congratulations to Peyton. Peyton had a piece of her artwork, which I included here, being awarded the Silver Key Scholastic Art Awards Program. Congratulations to Peyton. And their work was on display at Pinkerton Academy, I believe in April. It's currently out. Congratulations to the HBHS Performing Arts Department. The Lightning Thief was the winter musical. It was outstanding, a unique performance. It was one I enjoyed. Unique. I hadn't seen a play like that before, musical like that before. The pit band was outstanding. The tech crew did an incredible job. The light show was outstanding. So really congrats to all that were involved, from the band to the actors, the stage crew. It was really a great event. Congratulations, we had speech contest winners. Congratulations. This was put on by Marie Salamone in her advanced writing class. So congratulations to the students that are listed there. They took part, it was actually the night of the annual meeting, so I did not attend, but our top three finishers, Rachel Levesque, Finn Brown, and Anuya Chalakapati. So congratulations to those guys for their performance, which included students from Merrimack High School as well. As we have for several years now, we administered the school day SAT. All juniors took this on Wednesday, March 22nd. As you may recall, this is a computer-based assessment now. It was administered on school-issued Chromebooks this year, which we did last year as well, but this year the format was changed, and we administered it back in the classrooms with the one-to-one environment being new this year. The classroom environment for the testing was a possibility, so that worked out well. I was happy with that transition, and we expect our results later on this spring. Congratulations to Josh LaPointe. Josh takes part in a CTE program offered at Milford Engineering Design. Josh and his team of classmates from the Milford program won the bridge competition, and Josh and his classmates were recognized up at the governor's office in Concord last month. So congratulations to Josh. I wanted to report out on our instructional practices committees. So included in this month's report is the Grading and Assessment Subcommittee's Purpose of Grading Statement. That was a product that they put forth after a lot of work that they had done felt the need to develop a statement, a grading statement, purpose of grading statement, so they all had a common understanding of where that, where the work could, to be honest, begin from. Advisory Subcommittee reports that HBHS has made use of that home-based Cal block 4 times this year, including that Monday schedule where we talked about implementing it to allow students to schedule their Cal blocks with the support of a staff member. So we did that with 2 weeks remaining in the second quarter. Myself, as well as Mr. Ballou, and participated in a statewide PLC that included teachers and administrators from around the state to evaluate effective master schedules that implement advisories and flex blocks. And this was a consistent theme throughout, that everyone continues to look to evolve their flex block, their advisory model, so what we call our CAV block and flex block and advisories. So we are not alone in our pursuit to perfect this now common practice to have this flex block in the middle of a school day. And it was very beneficial to the process to hear what other schools are doing, what other schools have learned from, and hopefully we'll continue to work that. Preliminary conversations with union leadership are underway to plan for a potential pilot for next year. While the weighted and unweighted subcommittee has not continued to meet, the steering committee has made the recommendation that high school leadership team, which includes administration and BLT, review the following points at the conclusion of the upcoming scheduling process. So to review course enrollment trends in weighted courses, since we're having removed class rank, to see if there's been an impact there, positively or negatively. Current practices and weighting courses offered to students in grades 9 and 10. As was the case in years past, AP classes and honors classes were not offered at the grades 9 and 10, and that has since changed. So to take a look at if there is a need to change how we tag classes, as an example, as an accelerated course versus an honors course. So those conversations are happening internally at the building level now. Congratulations to our math team who traveled over to Sauhegan in February, took home second place. And special congratulations to Will Longton, who once again was the highest scoring mathlete in the state. So highest scoring senior across all divisions, bringing home a trophy and a nice $500 scholarship. We have a number of activities coming up. I do want to point out a few things happening tonight. Actually, as I was speaking, I just got a text. We had the College and Career Fair tonight, which is the first of my knowledge since I've been around that we've hosted one. So we had over 70 colleges and universities, community colleges, trade schools, military recruiters up at the high school gym tonight for students of all grades, all ages, and their parents to attend. And my understanding is it went really well. So
Is that a regional thing or
no, national, yeah.
No, I mean, was it advertised to other schools or was it just for our school?
We kept it just Hollis and Brookline. At least that's all we advertised to, and we offered it to our staff, and you know, if there were students of age who wanted to attend.
How was the attendance, do you know?
Let's see. Attendance was good. College fair was amazing. Yes, it was helpful that there were home games, so there was plenty of attendance. So we had people who were attracted to it coming from the fields and whatnot. So it sounds like it went really well, and looking to build upon that. And just some of the internal conversations are that potentially offering something like that during the school day for students to attend. That's something we did in Bow, and although as an administrator it was a little bit of a crazy day, I think it's equal access to everyone, and I think it'd be nice to offer something like that. So having those types of conversations with school counseling.
Would we look into inviting other schools?
Other high schools? I wouldn't be opposed to it. I don't know if I'd offer it that during the school day. I think maybe this format might allow for more public access, but I think during the school day, I would probably keep it to just our students.
Sure.
We have our SAS testing coming up in science. You may recall that that remains part of the state assessment. Students are assessed in science. That's happening just next week, which will be prior to April break, which is prior to AP testing when we return. We have prom right around the corner, early May, followed by guitar night, and our Walk for Change, which is a school day event, is planned for later on in May. So lots of good stuff coming up, and lots to celebrate in the last couple of months.
Great, thank you so much, Tim.
Does the SAS testing, is that, well, do we use the science portion of SAT as part of our statewide assessment as well?
No, the SAS test is the science.
So they only use the English portion of the SAT? But
Math.
our students take the full
Math and English
SAT.
and the essay writing.
There is no science portion of
Oh,
the SAT.
okay.
They're just special, those
So
are those special tests.
So because the
Those are-
math, yeah, those are
Yeah, they don't
achievements.
do a science. I mean, you can take the, what is it called, subject tests, but
Yeah,
they're not,
or-
it's not part of this. I mean,
Who
are they being phased out? I don't,
who produces the SAS test? You know, is that a national test?
it's New Hampshire, isn't it?
So it's more than New Hampshire, it's a consortium, but it's Cambrian.
Is it used outside of New Hampshire? The same
Yes.
test? So are we able to get, I'm just wondering if there is any alternative similar to what we're able to do with SATs that has greater value than just providing data to the state? So that was my question on that.
Any other questions, Tom?
Are the page that's submitted by the Grading and Assessment Subcommittee, is that part of your report, or is that a separate element of our meeting?
That's the, that's part of his report, and that's the statement that,
So is now the time to ask questions about that page?
let's hold off on that, see if there's any other questions on the rest of the report, and then we'll come back to
Okay.
that, okay? Are there any other questions on the rest of the report, on the other parts of the report besides grading and assessment? I just want to congratulate the students. I just lost all the whole list, but there are so many students on this list, like, the 3 students who did so well in the speech competition, plus all the kids who participate in that. Peyton and the art piece, the performing arts department, and the CTE student, Josh. I mean, it's so great to see something coming from one of those programs and getting sort of feedback on that. And then finally, obviously, the math team, getting to second place, and then Will again. So, and robotics also qualifying.
Oh.
But unfortunately,
Yeah.
They're not going to be attending.
They're choosing not to go to, was it Houston?
Texas,
someplace, yeah.
So, I mean, I can't speak for all of us, but I just want to extend our congratulations, so. And now would be a really great time, unless somebody else has another question, to talk about the grading and assessment statement of purpose of grading. And we have some members of the Grading and Assessment Committee here as well, so they can speak to that too.
I guess my first question is, what is the impact of making the statement? Because if it's just, this is the committee statement and that's the end of it, then so be it, because that's it. But if this now becomes a starting point for additional activity, I have a lot to say.
So, just for your information, this was presented to the Instructional Practices
I know, but it
Steering
was
Committee.
scheduled at a time when I couldn't attend.
Okay, I'm sorry about that, but, so it did go through the steering committee as well.
And the steering committee did the steering committee wordsmith it?
No.
No,
No, so it's still a statement from the subcommittee.
right. No, the steering committee accepted it as is, I think, is what the steering.
But with what intent?
I'll let the people from the committee.
Well, I think the intent is to put it in the student handbook so that the students can see it. And we want the staff to also, in the staff handbook, so the staff will be using this as a guideline for when they are setting up their grading at this point. I mean, what's a better way for me to
Yeah,
say
so
that? I think.
there's a lot of back and forth conversation, and I think it took a little bit for the committee to sort of find direction. So step one was really, why do we grade? Define that first, kind of identify some core beliefs that would be part of both the student and staff handbook. This is what we as a, well, it's really a district because it was 7 through 12, believe the purpose of grading is. And then from there, so what does that look like? So the next step would be, okay, so this is what the purpose is. Now let's assess how we're doing in comparison to the purpose. What changes do we need to implement? How far are we from where we say we would like to be? And then, what's the timeline and what steps do we need to take to get to this for grading? And then the next step would be assessment. Where does assessment fall into all of this? And I think the easiest point to consider is application of grading practices will be consistent by course and will provide a wide range of data points. So, let's say we're looking at Accelerated Algebra 2. All the Accelerated Algebra 2 courses should have the same grading practices, meaning if we allow retakes, then we allow retakes for all of the sections regardless of the teacher. That might be different for an Algebra 2 class because the agreements will be the same for a course, but not necessarily for all the versions of that course, if you will. And a math course is going to have a very specific grading practice that's agreed upon, and that could and should look very different from a humanities course. So really, this is our purpose, and then how do we do compared to this, and then what changes do we need to put into place?
And I misspoke. The Instructional Practices Committee did wordsmith this a little bit. I think we changed a few things, and yeah.
Yeah, and just piggybacking on what Gina was talking about, some of the practicality and use, and what Krista was saying, and its implementation maybe into the handbooks, was also, the efficacy of certain things like certain assessment practices like midterms and finals, and why they stand the way they do. Is there room for improvement? We have a certain format that we follow. It's been followed for years. There's been some evolution within, because of the points that Gina was making. Certain things might make sense in a humanities course that wouldn't make sense in a math class, and vice versa. So part of the feedback from the steering committee to the grading and assessment was to look at some of our practices to include how we grade quarters, semesters, finals, midterms. So that's some of the work that we kicked back to the subcommittee.
Is this statement intended to pertain primarily to, say, quarterly or reported grades, or is this on the level of assignment grades?
So there is and that was sort of when the committee was getting caught in the weeds. There's a grade, there's grading, there's assessment. Assessments are graded. And so it was really, what's the purpose of that report card, let's say, or that transcript? That's a communication tool. And that, and the finality of it, if it's a semester-long course, it's the end of the semester that we're really looking toward. When, there's quarter one, quarter two, and that should be a continuum of learning so that both the student and the teacher can assess what needs to be done to continue to help that student meet that targeted end goal of the end of the course. So this is really that grade as opposed to grading, which is an important step that we also have to look to, and the committee has to do that, but I think that we had to find a starting point, and the starting point was just,
so
what is this?
if I heard you correctly, you view it as essentially some taking some snapshots at periods through the year and looking at how that progresses, and that relates to the third bullet of informing teachers and educators about next steps. So that's where that connection occurs. You look, okay, they did great first quarter, second quarter, but third quarter the grade was poor. That indicates there was some change in the performance of a student in the continuum. Is that a somewhat accurate understanding of that?
Yes, and so what do we have to do to ensure that learning really takes place? Because if we have a set of standards that we're trying to teach for a course, the students should learn them by the end of the course.
Yeah,
I
okay.
mean-
No, I understand that, that's.
I'm just trying to explain kind of where, sorry, where we came through this, because we were looking at it through, we had parents take surveys, we had students take surveys, we had staff take surveys, because everybody looks at it differently, and we were trying to take all this information and everyone's perspective on it, and trying to put it into a summary that everyone could go, oh, okay. Because everyone looks at it differently. Teachers look at it differently. Each individual teacher looks at it differently. Parents look at it differently. Students were looking at it differently. We were trying to take all that information so that students would understand what's trying to be done with the grading. The parents, here's what we're trying to show you, and the teachers, so the teachers can understand what the next steps are. Because one of our concerns are, in certain classes, math and science and things like that, if a student isn't doing well, that's an indication something needs to be done. We can't just go, well, we got a D on that test, moving on. And, because something isn't being found. So it's to try to help everyone try to understand. But again, the different courses, math is different than social studies, which is different than English. And so we wanted to give everyone, we tried to take all this information and try to put it in. I mean, this has been a year and a half, almost 2 years worth of work to get this statement and to try to get us all to figure out where we're coming from. But we want to put it places where everyone is going to see it and can refer to it and kind of bring themselves back to this being the starting point.
Great. The next to last paragraph says that grading practices will be consistent by course. The last paragraph, the last one says grading practices will be, variation will be allowed between subjects. Those two seem to be a little disconnected in that the second one implies a broader scope of consistency versus what Gina said, that the two different levels of the same subject matter may have different methodologies. I have my own opinion of which one I prefer, but either way, I think that you may want to relook at that just to get alignment, because it sends a mixed message. But even more importantly is the question of how can that be monitored and ensured, because my personal belief and things that I have, and my belief comes from feedback from others, is that we don't currently have that now. So if we're gonna be putting this in the very near future, we need to be prepared to defend and monitor and defend that.
Well, I think by courses, I think what we meant by course is, for example, an Algebra 2 course. That would stay consistent. A subject to us would be math,
Right.
science.
So you're gonna have consistency. The second one seems to say you're gonna allow variation by subject. That to me says, but within a subject, it's gonna be consistent. But the prior one says that within a subject, it may not be consistent
I read
because.
that as variation between subjects, meaning that the math assessment and grading process might look very different than a humanities grading and assessment process. So that's how I read that, and that's how I
But you don't think it's
see
being
that. But you don't think
interpreted
it's
that way.
clear enough.
No, but
So-
I'm saying, but what do you interpret the prior one saying that they will only be
Because-
consistent by course?
Because I'm interpreting that across a course in a subject area, the course will have a consistent grading mechanism, meaning when a teacher lays out their grade book, the teacher of an Algebra 1 course is gonna have the same percentage grades and the same look and the same policies about grading as another teacher who teaches the same course. So, but the math department may in general have a different way of looking at grading and breaking down grades than a humanities class. So an English department might say, the whole department, the whole subject
But do you
area.
think Algebra 1 should be graded and assessed differently than Advanced Algebra 1?
I think maybe the teachers might feel that way, and so I feel like
Does this
That's
statement
two
allow
different
it?
courses.
it's
So-
two different courses.
Right, so my point is, I like the idea that it's, if you're in math, you're gonna have consistency, but, here's where I see it, and the example I'll give is, I think it was, honors English versus, AP English. And when my kids were in school, the big uproar was that AP English got you a whole bunch of benefits, but honors English was graded so much more difficultly. And that there was an assumption of a hierarchy in difficulty. Some of the kids, we've been through other discussions, avoided the AP because they thought it was going to be a much higher workload. If course to course within the same subject matter does not have consistency of grading, that I think that needs to be understood. I don't know, I'm wondering how you can ensure consistency within a course when you have inconsistency course to course, especially when you have a staff member teaching both courses.
So
I
you're
think
kind of arguing for a departmental grading practice and assessment method where the entire department sort of has the same focus, so it's not broken down by courses, it's all, I'm just trying to interpret what you're saying.
No, I am arguing for a clear statement of what's going to be expected. And
So-
I don't think the statement is clear with those two different
Okay.
paragraphs.
So having been on the committee and wordsmith, I think you get lost in some of the words sometimes and trying to clean it up and make it clear, but now that I'm hearing your interpretation,
Right.
not having been part of all those conversations, we say grading practices twice. And so we're using a consistent term, but we mean something different, so I do think we need more clarity. I 100% agree with what you're saying.
Okay, so,
That's,
so
I'll
what,
stop
so
there.
what's the next step? So you'll go back to the subcommittee? Okay. Are there any other questions on that? Okay.
No, that's good feedback, Tom.
Thank you. Moving on. So thank you for the principal and athletic reports. We're all done with those, right? Nothing else?
And just so that I don't only say negative things, I do want to comment that it's amazing. We've got 3 reports here covering a broad spectrum of the co-op with just amazing achievements. It's,
That's great. Thank you
and
so much.
it covers everything. It covers academics, it covers extracurricular activities, it covers sports, it covers science and arts, and
Great things
the
are happening.
people should be very proud of what's been achieved.
So, that being said, actually, Tim, you have to stay for
I
policy.
got some, two
Yeah.
couple policies.
Yeah, okay.
Next is the revenue and expense report. Linda sends her regrets, but had a previous commitment tonight. We're running right now, $1,255,902 in the positive. From that balance, we have committed to needs for FY '24 that the voters voted on. Maintenance trust was $300,000, special ed trust was $25,000. The retained fund balance at 2%, Kelly and Linda have done the calculation at $398,433. And the contingency fund, which passed at $125,000, giving us total reductions of $848,433. When I take that from our revenue, we're projecting a fund balance at the end of the year of $509,407. We believe that will continue to grow, because as you know, we still have positions that we're struggling to fill, and those positions are encumbered, so every month, every time we do payroll, that encumbrance goes away. There are 3 pieces that we'll be talking about in May. One we discussed a little bit tonight, which is the dugouts. We'll have a report from Brian. We'll have a better sense of the projected fund balance. If the money was there, I would most likely recommend accelerating the middle school entrance from a security and safety standpoint. It would be similar to the high school that we redid. We would take the office closest to the foyer and do those, what I call teller windows, as well as upgrade our buzzer systems and those things, so to be much more like the high school. And then lastly, we have been in some discussions, we've been very happy with the use of our flat screens for instructions, the flat panels that we have installed. We're doing that across the SAU, and it's been something that has been very well received. Rob participated in a first grade presentation when he was on the Hollis board, and it's remarkable how that has been totally just integrated. And I think as we prepare for that wave of students who are in first and second grade presently, that's a piece of technology they're going to be kind of used to and expecting when they arrive here at the middle school. So those would be the three things that we'd be looking at. And I'd be happy to address any questions. Linda will be back next month to give you a more in-depth discussion.
Any questions on the revenue and expense report? Tom?
On the explanation page,
Yep.
it has almost $22,000, almost $22,000 of extra legal expenses. Is that driven heavily by citizen-triggered activities around, like, district meetings and
So
things?
do you mean like the PWAs that we have to have lawyers,
And
that our
recounts
attorneys
and-
regularly look at and
Yeah.
spend hours and emailing back and forth?
Is that a big
driving
part
up
of that
our legal
cost?
expenses?
That is a driver, and again, it's gonna be very close, but our advertising cost, trying to find staffing, has really had to go up because we've used sources that we don't typically use. We're doing much more with Indeed.com, and a host of other places, from colleges and universities to publications. So we're really seeing the advertising costs go up. But the legal expenses, there have been a wealth of things, like I'll give you a recent example. We completed the recount on the SAU budget on Monday night. When that comes in, I do feel obligated to send it to legal to do a complete review. Legal fees right now are running about $289 an hour.
That's a deal.
Yep, we get very good rates. So Jim probably, between time on the phone with me, questions that Drew had and Peter had, which are the two monitors, we probably spent, 2.5 hours of legal fees. And then I do also, because I almost forgot, so that helped me, just want to thank all the community members who gave of their time, and the board members. We had, I think, about 18 people there for the recount, and everybody was donating their time. I want to thank Peter Webb, who's the Brookline moderator. Drew was out of town. Usually they would do it together. Peter stepped up and ran that recount, did a really nice job, and got those results out.
Did we send out the $10 bill?
That is still going out. We're in
Good.
contact.
So since we are talking about revenue and expenses and legal and all of that, it's not just the legal expense that was a nuisance recount. There was no reason to have that recount.
1 by 65%.
The original vote won by 65%.
Did the recount produce any difference?
It switched one vote in the SB2 district, in the Brookline
A
district.
single vote?
A single vote.
In the
So it was-
affirmative, not in the...
It was, yeah, and it moved to the affirmative, and the two ballot votes that were at the Hollis district meeting and at the co-op district meeting were completely perfect.
Imagine that.
And
So-
the person that requested it was not there.
Right.
I wanted to ask that.
So, but just in terms of the finance, since we're in this expense, obviously there's legal fees, but there's also the district pays you and Gina and your office to, facilitate our schools, to provide for our kids. And so every time your energy has to be redirected to something like that, it's a cost. I mean, obviously, we don't write another check, but it's a cost. It's a cost to the kids, it's a cost to the district, it's a cost to the community.
There's an opportunity cost of things they can't do with their
Right,
energy and
it's,
time.
it's stuff they can't do. And so it was a nuisance recount, and to our public input, the petition warrant articles are regularly coming up. They're being defeated, and if anyone is out there listening, it is really okay to table those articles. I think folks feel strongly that we want to, make sure that everyone's heard, but it's a citizen petition. It's 25 people, they get to vote, they write their petition, they put it on the warrant. It's really okay for the folks in the legislative body who are gonna vote against it to table those petitions. It's
Especially
okay to do that.
after 5 consecutive
Right, exactly.
evaluations.
So, I can't tell people how to vote, but as a person who's a, elected official and listening to public input and knowing 5-hour meetings are grueling, it is really important for folks out there to, if you're gonna vote no, it's okay to table them. It really is. And, the nuisance recount is incredibly frustrating. And those of us who volunteered our time, and we did, that was time away from our families and our things just to do our duty. But the moderators have to be there. They're required to be there. And they, we had a recount in Hollis, it has nothing to do with this district, but our moderator had to take time off from work in order to do that. So, I'm just kind of railing against it a little bit. 'cause
I'd like to understand the opportunities to approach our state legislators to put in bills that would maybe double the amount of signatures that you need for a petition warrant article, possibly put limits that you can't have a perennial
Petition warrant article?
when it's been defeated. Some kind of guardrails around that, because it's clear it's being weaponized and causing this body to almost be hindered to get its work done.
Well, and that is true, because when we look at our warrant, we specifically try to keep our items down to very, as few as possible, because we don't want the meeting to be 5 hours, and we're careful in what we ask for every year and what we put on there. And so, I thought it was a really good point about standardizing contracts. But the reason to standardize a contract should not be because you don't want to have to deal with the vote every year. It should be because it's the right thing to do for the contract. But it's a good point, so.
One other question on that explanation page, site improvements, the press box, that was an unanticipated expense, but there was offsetting revenue for that as well, wasn't there? Unexpected revenue?
There was limited revenue on that, and that is directly related to what I'll call completion, like things that were never, I don't want to say planned on, they were planned on, but just went well beyond cost because what construction cost did.
Those
was
are
bring-
overruns?
Yeah, bringing in electricity to the press box.
Okay, so that was legitimate additional drain on the budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there any other questions?
I'm good,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to the school calendar, 2023, 2024. Our favorite. I know, I won't even need to really look at this next year. I'm so sad.
Okay, so this calendar does not look a whole lot different from our typical calendars. Teachers returning the Monday before Labor Day. 7th and 9th grade orientation on the Wednesday before Labor Day, with all students returning on August 31st. So there are 4 early releases identified in the calendar, specifically the October 5th one I've identified as the early release dedicated to our mandatory suicide prevention training for all of our staff. Moving into November, without the vote on that Tuesday, the professional day is scheduled for November 1st.
Oh, the day after Halloween.
Why is there no vote?
It's not an election year?
She's talking about national.
Like a national vote?
Oh, when's the primary?
So
Oh,
there's
that's-
primary, but that's not scheduled. There's a window, and so
Okay.
you can't plan a
All right,
calendar
and
around
anyway,
that.
that would be after the first of the year, that's later, yeah.
Correct, yeah. We have an early release up against Thanksgiving recess, as we've done, I think, the last 2 years. The December holiday, December 25th through January 1st, with students returning on Tuesday, January 2nd. Another early release, January 29th. And then another early release, February 7th. So if you notice, the early releases were kind of front-loaded, and that's because we are planning quite a bit of professional development as part of our math curriculum review for K-8. And so there's a lot of intensive PD with follow-up sessions reviewing student work, and I want to make sure that occurs at a time that it's still beneficial to the school year. February break, last week of February, runs into March. Professional Day, March 12th, which is the voting day. It was really important for Brookline to be, to not have students in the building on that voting day, so we're looking to schedule it then. April break, I want to remind everyone that Massachusetts vacation is always the third Monday of April.
Regardless of when President's Day is, or is it?
I'm talking about April, so President's Day.
I mean, not
is-
President's Day.
Patriots Day.
Patriots Day. Patriots Day is always the third Monday. Usually that bumps us to the fourth week of April into May, but the way the calendar falls, that means our break would be April 22nd through the 26th after theirs, just to clarify.
So we're still offset by a week.
Yes, we're offset by from Massachusetts, but there's always the question about which week are they picking, but
And-
they're very clear.
Do AP tests always start like May 1st, or would they start April 29th next year, don't you know? Because we usually, that's one thing that's weird, is we go literally
Right
from
into testing.
break to AP testing.
And I don't have the answer to that, but they're typically the first 2 weeks of May, so I wonder if it's May 6th, and
Okay.
Kate, you might actually have the answer.
I don't know if they've got next year's dates out,
Okay.
but it's always in May.
Yeah, so I can't imagine, I've never heard of, and I, taught AP Chem for years and years, I never had my test in April, and that's always on day one.
Right.
Which is always fun to be that teacher. June 8th, proposed high school graduation, with 5 snow days, June 18th, the last day of school for students, putting the 21st as the last day for teachers. So there you have it, draft calendar.
So we'll be taking a vote on this calendar. Is there any updates for this year?
Right now, graduation is the day that you approved, June 10th, correct, Tim? I didn't say that
June-
wrong this time?
June 10th.
June
Yep.
10th.
And do we don't need to further improve it, like that's set? Because it says
That's set.
tentative on the calendar.
No, that is set now.
Okay.
We went through our snow days, we've met our hours, and then we are looking currently at Friday, June 16th, but also looking at our professional development and trying to determine what is best. So we're looking, right now, the last day of school is tentatively scheduled for June 16th, half-day. And we will have a definitive answer in the next week, but I think people out there can plan on that. It's just not knowing what could come up with spring rain or anything like that.
Great. Thank you so much. So we don't have to approve
Do have
this year's, the end of the year or the last day of school? You just
No,
make that
because it's-
determination?
it-
Right,
You
it's
approved
it's
the
all,
calendar
okay.
from last year,
Okay.
and we're not really changing from what we agreed upon.
I was at a CTE PAC meeting last night, and they updated us that they're breaking down the regions. So we're now in a region that only includes the one center of, excuse me, we're with Milford, Nashua, and is it Hudson. So we're dropping the one out west, okay. And they said that state law requires no more than 10 scheduling days difference. Has anything actually been done to ensure that that happens? Because the start of school itself is one of the biggest offenders of that.
We have had a number of regional meetings with CTE centers and superintendents. And we have made significant improvements to aligning calendars. Some districts, we don't necessarily fall into it, but used to have a problem with their start date. So what they are doing is simply starting their CTE kids when the CTE centers start. So there have been a number of things to really improve that. We had superintendents report on that to the State Board of Education, because we really think, they were thinking of passing it as more of a legislative action. And the problem with that is there are some CBAs that are very strict about start and stop dates and all those different things.
Know anyone who's got one of those?
Right. So from our perspective, we said we felt we could meet, and we're making some really nice progress, and I think everybody's, moving a little bit. But we typically didn't have a lot of the dates, like we only brought back early release days kind of to catch up from COVID and do professional development. There are still districts that have one of those a month. And those are the dates we really have to look at, because a lot of times your CTE kids are going in the afternoon. So if you have one of those a month, you've lost 10 days of CTE instruction. So in our relationships with Nashua and Milford and Hudson, I'd say we have pretty good communication. Not as, ideal as we'd hope, but pretty darn good. So I feel comfortable that our region is heading in the right direction, and I really haven't worried about the other regions because,
They don't.
we just gotta.
We gotta
we gotta
get
do
our
what we
own
have to
house
do.
in order first.
Right, exactly.
So is it fair to say that, with start date and through the year, we've got alignment that you think is, supportive of our kids?
Supportive of our kids and kind of within that 10 days, but then we also, the reality of snowstorms, cancellations.
I'm just trying to figure out if I go back to the people in Milford and say, hey, you guys need to fix some stuff. Do I need to do that?
No, I think we're making progress. Tim, would you disagree? I mean, because we've had guidance attending those meetings. I've attended them on the superintendent side. I know Tim has been in discussions.
Yep, I think that there's, in addition to your district calendars, there's also, building level days. SAT day, if your students are taking SATs, likely you're not hosting, you're not receiving students as a CTE center. Vice versa, if we have SAT day, our kids aren't going
don't get to
CTE.
attend, yeah.
Right, or even something as, small as a pep rally day. You're doing something different in your building. You allow students to remain in your school for their school spirit day or what have you. So you could have a calendar set, but there's things, snow days can impact it too, that aren't necessarily set days on an approved calendar, that your building is you're still gonna operate as a building, both us and all
Well,
the other.
we're pretty good with, the superintendent's aligning cancellation. I mean, there's always variations. I hear your words, but I don't know what it means as far as whether you think that we're in good shape or we're not.
I think we're in good shape. I really do.
No,
and
I
think
heard it
it's
from
been
you, but you asked him, and I'm not sure if the things you were saying said, yeah, on paper it looks good, but you don't think it's actually gonna.
No, I'm just
come to
bringing up, I'm bringing
flesh
up
out that
additional
way.
points that I think, don't,
Because the law requires that you fix those things. The SAT days, those are planned. They can't just willy-nilly say, oh, we've decided we're going to be closed this day and shut the kids out, because if they do, they're now forcing a violation of state law. And I want to make sure that they understand that, so it takes away some of the flexibility for us, but also for them, and people have to agree to that, or they're going to be in violation. And the sad part of it is, the students who are already in district of those centers are not going to be the ones to complain, because their kids are not harmed. It's the people who are in sending districts that are harmed, and they're the minority. So, if we may only have 3 students who get harmed by a decision by Milford or by Nashua or by Hudson, I don't want to leave it to those kids' parents to make a stink. I think we as a school and a school board have a responsibility to upfront hold these people, hold the centers accountable, to put out a schedule, do their best to coordinate with our school and others, and stick to it. And if they're not, I want to know about it now, rather than find out about it at the end of the year when we've got kids who weren't able to complete their programs the way that their peers were. And I only get that from you folks.
No, we will do more follow-up. I can tell you discussions have evolved around if Andy's attending, let's say Alvord, which is our furthest trip, and that's going to now impact getting English on my Hollis Brookline schedule. Alvord's now talking to us about would that student take English here as well to accommodate that. And those are discussions that have never happened, So I
They are happening now?
They're happening now. if that was the only drawback of trying to, like, Tim can't fit English into my schedule, and I really want, veterinary science over at Alvern, I can call over to Alvern now and say, hey, this is the situation, and we're not looking to do this, the CTE is a tuition-based. We've been discussing that these classes are more about running CTE. Can we figure out a relationship where we're not necessarily charging the
Nickel and diming.
nickel and diming, because again, CTE centers function off the federal dollars that come in, and those are allocated to centers by just population. So as population starts to dwindle across the state, in a lot of districts, ours is not, ours is actually going the other way, they're gonna become more, I'll say, in need of our students.
And so they might be more willing to accommodate them to
Correct.
take an English class that we don't have to pay them to teach it to them.
Correct.
So we would still have to pay the tuition for the veterinary science,
Right.
but they could pop into the English class too.
Right, and that's still in discussion, but I'm just saying that those didn't occur 5 or 10 years ago.
And to be fair, I don't think it's that they made conscious decisions to ignore. It just really wasn't on their radar.
Right.
Yep. No, I agree. I think there's been a lot of positive discussions taking place. And I think it really started back, you might have recalled Rick Barnes talking about it, because we were one of the first ones that said we wouldn't jump into a new 10-year agreement. And that stunned people, but it was like, we need to have more say in the 10 years. So that's really Rick's stance a number of years back. Kind of everybody started saying, well, wait a minute, if Hollis Brookline doesn't do it, and then the next person pulls out, we're not gonna meet our requirements for offerings for multi-districts.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then, so the next topic is the creation of a co-op facilities committee.
Yeah, I wasn't looking for any action tonight, but I think as I look back and forward, we've evolved tremendously in terms of what we've been able to do with our facilities, and now we have a facilities person full-time at the SAU. So I wanted to just kind of get a sense of the board regarding if I was to form a facilities committee and detail a charge of that committee and make it a board committee, so there'd be membership of 1 or 2 board members, whatever it is, but also get some community members from both co-op towns, so Hollis and Brookline, and meet on a quarterly basis. Looking at Lance as kind of chairing those meetings, so that there's a regular discussion every quarter or some sort of committee report, almost like a principal's report from them, about here's where we are, here's what we're looking to do, this is what piece of facilities, because at times, we know what's on a CIP list, we know where we're heading, but I think, looking to the future, as money, gets tighter in the economy, maybe doesn't go in a positive direction, having this information out there to the community on a regular basis will be like, they've been talking about this for a while now. So that's my thought, but I think, to me, it's 2 board members who have interest in that. I'd be asking Lance to chair it. I'd probably be asking a community member, kind of co-chair, somebody who's been very involved with our district and our schools, and then develop kind of what is the charge of that committee and what should the board expect from that committee on a quarterly basis. And obviously, if we have a year where we're going for a bond, it may not be quarterly, it may be monthly. So we'll adjust that as the need comes. But I just think the time has come, and I think what I see from Lance is really starting to get that goal of overall coordination of the SAU. I mean, Kelly has it down from the financial part now, but now Lance is getting to maintenance issues that needed to be done, but always seem to get pushed off. And I'm not talking about things that are necessarily major, but things that need to get done to maintain the properties that we have.
Does anybody have any questions on that? Tom?
Andy, I appreciate you taking on this task. I had originally asked for it to be on the agenda after the vote to not support the bond, and hearing the community input. I have talked to some community members in Brookline, and I think we know some other names that are already there. I'm very supportive of this. I think that the need is immediate unless something has changed since district meeting that we no longer have any concerns about our heating systems. If that still exists, I think this is an imminent and important need. So I am supportive of it. I think if it can serve two purposes. One is to do the things that you said as far as looking at CIP and getting into that. But I think a bigger function that it might do is become an outreach and PR program so that we have community stakeholders that are outside of the official school system partnering with the school to garner support, coincidentally along the kind of lines that what Tom Enright spoke of.
That's what we did with we had a facility committee for the turf field and the STEM center.
Yep.
And we ran public forums and, we had a Facebook page.
Right.
that I
So-
no
so-
longer
so I see
access
this
as the administrator, so.
More than just a somewhat internal working system that invites the public in. I think this would benefit from being a larger group and a very public group, not necessarily have 1 million voters on the committee. You can say that there will be one vote from each function, but encourage the people from our communities who consider themselves experts or passion players in the topic as the topics come up. And I think we can leverage things like the Hollis Brookline newsletter to assist us in those things. But I like your idea of having it co-chaired perhaps by people who are not traditional school members. And if there is support for this, I'd either here or offline, I'd be happy to talk to you about a couple of people that I think would be valued participants who would help us get some support.
I think the timeline is to approve it next month in have it as a deliberative
Okay.
item. And in the meantime, I think Andy's gonna work a little bit on what the charter of it would be.
Yep.
And I'm sure you would accept feedback from any of us about ideas for members or how many members or what members. And so by next month, we should have a little bit more of it fleshed out and have a deliberative item on that. So-
And we will.
Did you have something, Rob?
Yeah, I'm in support of this because, Andy, as you know, the work that we did for the lower schools in H-STEP, the forums, we're bringing people along the journey, not trying to sell an idea a month before our annual meeting. It's a long conversation that needs to happen. And also it gives that body the ability to do the long work that's involved, whether there's studies, whether you reach out to subject matter experts, and be able to do the detail that's needed. So I'm 100% behind that.
Anybody else?
I will definitely bring it back,
Great.
and, for vetting and changes and things like that, with the hope of being able to arrive at something, even if it isn't perfect, to move forward, because to Tom's point, we actually had a discussion with EEI the other day, just saying, okay, we got rejected, we need to go back and review and kind of look at everything that we can do, and how can we change it, upgrade it, update it to get something, because we do need boilers.
Right, and so it might have to start with a monthly
Right,
meeting,
yeah.
given the first year, but the
Yeah,
idea is
kickstart it.
to keep this as a standing
Yep.
committee, like we have a policy committee, we have somebody on the budget committee, like this would be the regular, we would always have a facilities
Correct.
committee, and it would be a standing committee, and at some points, it might only meet quarterly, but some months, some years it might meet monthly, depending on the circumstances. Okay?
I like it. Andy, is it your opinion that based on the last-minute work that was done prior to the district meeting, that the state is willing to give us a little bit of time to take a second cut at this, or are we now in just pure recovery mode where we're back to having to have something done by this fall regarding the tanks?
The tanks were to the summer of '24. Now, that
The
doesn't.
inspection that we had,
Right, we'll have the inspection, and if we failed, we wouldn't have to do something to the summer of '24.
Okay.
We'll continue to dialogue with them, because, there's potential that one set of pipes are better than the other, so we might have to come back to you as a board and say, okay, we're gonna prioritize building X, and here's why. And, so we have some ideas that we'll be bringing back, but I think getting this facilities committee, so you have a wider breadth of people who are discussing it, to your point, in both communities. And, if it comes up at the ball game, all of a sudden, maybe there's somebody sitting there that says, well, I'm on that committee. And, here's what they're looking to do and here's why. And that's a whole different discussion than, to Tom Enright's point of view, trying to make a decisions at a 5-hour meeting if I haven't followed the school board at all.
Right. I had heard concerns expressed that the testing in November could in and of itself trigger an event that might require immediate action. Is that true?
There's that potential, but we'll work with our consultant, who's been a long time
Okay.
person with our boilers. And if we thought there was that risk going into the heating system, we would take the hit and probably not do the testing until the spring, because I'm not gonna be without a boiler. And I think it's still the reality, as we know from some of our work on a variety of different facilities projects, getting equipment and materials is very difficult still.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the general assurances.
In your packet, you have a wonderful, wonderful document that if you're having trouble sleeping, you might want to just pull out. I'm not looking for any action tonight because of the length of the document. Want you to give it to you, and we'll have a vote in May. This is a yearly event. It came in about 4 or 5 years ago.
Except it's different this year.
What?
It's very different this year.
There are some pieces.
No, I mean, the big difference is that opening statement that the school board deferring to the superintendent is no longer considered an acceptable response.
Yep.
So that means that the chair of the school board is now signing, and it says right in it that they become liable, personally liable
Oh, great.
for, if these things are not done.
Okay, well, they better get done then.
Thanks, Holly.
Well, and it's a variety of subtle differences, but that's why I'm giving you the whole month.
Okay, great.
So,
'cause-
and again, I will reach out to Jim, because there are some parts where
Gotta get a
I
GoFundMe
just find
started.
it's already covered under our license. We have a certain obligation or could lose our license as educators. So I'm not, again, even 5 years ago when we discussed, I'm not sure what the real purpose is. And with the required audits and everything that goes into it,
I think a big part of the purpose is in districts that are not as professionally staffed as ours, there have been intentional and unintentional violations. And I think what this is doing is putting districts on notice that, hey, just saying you hired somebody doesn't absolve you of responsibility for meeting the legal needs. And it's great while you're here. And when you retire, or for some reason decide that enough's enough, who's next? This is really, really dangerous. What happened? I'd like you to ask Jim. What happens if you refuse to sign? Does that mean you can't get the grants? Because I remember there were some types of grants that we chose not to participate because of the baggage that came with them. And one of the things that I'd like to understand next month is not only reviewing this, but what monies are impacted by this agreement.
Yep, I just made a note, Tom. We'll get you some real dollars, but Gina was grabbing the mic, and I know she was gonna just run through, because she knows them like the back of her hand.
I'm thinking more scope rather than the details. Are we talking tens, hundreds, or thousands, or millions?
Less than $1 million, but this would impact everything. So all your IDEA special ed funding, that's our most significant allocation. There's Title I, which we don't accept. There's Title II. There's Title IV. Title IV, our elementaries get the bare minimum, which is $10,000. It's about $14,000 the co-op. Title II is about 20-something thousand. But we're talking a few $100,000 for IDEA funds. But this also includes your robotics grants. This includes,
Food.
Is this a
food.
state form or a federal form?
This is something that came out from the state as a result of what I believe were the audits at the state level when the federal government came in. So kind of to your problem,
So they're passing the buck.
right. But also understand that your food sources, federal funded free and reduced lunch and that, so I worry about it because there seems to be what I'll call the creep every year. And I can tell you that I brought it up with some of my colleagues, a few minor differences. I don't necessarily, to me, they're not necessarily minor because they're, to your point, they're putting an onus on the chair that
Right.
I don't think the chair really, in a volunteer situation, which we basically are, has the time or the knowledge.
I don't even think they have the ability to force it to happen because it's day-to-day operational oversight.
Right, and that's not our
Right,
role.
and some of the things are obvious. If you don't do it, it's a big deal. But some of the details in here, I did read it between naps. And,
Yeah, I know.
and some of them are so minute, yet we know in our communities, it would not be hard to believe that some resident would pick up on a very minor detail and bring suit against the district. And that scares the heck out of me.
So I'll do a couple things. I'll get the
Yeah, I'm gonna
information
hit
on
on
the dollars. I'll ask Jim for more input on it, because we talk
Yeah.
about it pretty much on a yearly basis. And then we'll come back and hopefully be able to sign a document, or at least,
Gina answered the dollars to my satisfaction, but I wasn't sure if this is just small change and let's do without, or if this is big deal. And it's clearly something we can't ignore.
right.
Great, thank you.
It's only 17 pages of light reading.
Yeah, that's okay, we'll go through that. So next month, you're gonna need action on that. Great. Moving on to deliberations. We need to re-adopt the policy BCA Board Member Code of Ethics. Hold on one second, I just want to pull it up in front of me. It's in your packet, I'm sure you've all read through it. I need a motion by member that the board by roll call state agreement to adhere to policy BCA Board Member Code of Ethics.
So moved.
Moved by Cindy, I need a second, second by Kate. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, so by roll call, I'll start with you, Rob.
Rob, aye.
Kate, aye.
Holly, aye.
Krista, aye.
Cindy, I.
Tom, aye.
Okay, so
I'm just
that's,
curious, why did this one have to be roll call?
I don't know, it's required, it says,
Does it say?
Dawn told me so, and I listened to Dawn.
Yeah, it's because it's each individual board member saying they will adhere to the
Okay.
code of ethics.
Okay, and then we have,
So when a board member's absent, what happens?
We usually, in the past, have had them do it.
Not busy?
okay. And now we need to look at,
Investment.
DFA, investments. The state requires us to review the policy on a yearly basis. The intent is to provide an opportunity, at least yearly, to consider investments. In large districts that receive tax dollars in a single transfer, they may be a decision to invest as a means of generating revenue. As identified within the current policy, the school district treasurer, working in conjunction with the superintendent and his or her designee and pursuant to RSA 197:23-A, is authorized to invest the funds of the district subject to specified objectives and standards of care. So I need a motion to adopt policy DFA investments.
So moved.
Moved by Krista. I need a second. Second by Cindy. Is there any comments on this? Yes,
I have
Tom?
a question. Has anything changed such that we have sums of money that we are investing that would be impacted by this yet?
No, it's still, things are getting more favorable on short-term investments. But it would be something we would talk to the co-op treasurer before we started anything, and then come back and inform the board.
If we were, for instance, to have passed the bond, and you were to have $3 million come in, would that likely get invested in this context, do you think?
That would be something we'd look at, especially if we had passed a bond that requires multiple summers' worth of work. So you're spending $1 million the first year and $1 million the second summer. That would be a good opportunity to look at how to invest that to offset the cost.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that? All those in favor? 6-0. Okay, so that passes. That goes, motion carries. Okay, so we have to, I need a motion to approve the 2023-2024 school calendar as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Kate. Need a second?
Second?
Second by Rob. Is there any conversation about the calendar? We've had some discussion on the calendar already related to CTE. Is there any others? Okay, all in favor? And that's 6-0, motion carries. We need to look at the recommendation for teacher nominations, which we've done in non-public. So I need a motion to accept the superintendent's recommendation for teachers nominations as presented.
This for both schools?
This is for the entire packet.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Krista, seconded by Rob. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? 6-0. We've removed policy GADA, so next is to see what action the board will take regarding policy JF. This is first reading, so we'll put it on the floor. I need a motion to accept the first reading of policy JF enrollment.
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Kate, seconded by Rob. And at this point, I'll open the floor for discussion and ask Tim to kind of give us a little bit of a background on it.
Yep, so
Packet.
you might be familiar with this. So we looked at this last year going into this current school year, and you'll see on the dates there in August, we approved and adopted existing language. The JF prior to last year was, like some policies we come across, outdated and kind of general, and we wanted to, in our review of high school policies, define what a full-time student meant. And we did a fair amount of work in collaborating with local school districts, and we came to an agreement. This came before the board, it was approved, and we all felt that 6 approved in accordance with other policies. Alternative credits was an appropriate number. In this particular number, although it went into effect, adopted August 31st, our handbooks included, enrollment in athletics and whatnot had started already. So we were not going to disqualify students for not being full-time students for athletic purposes based on this, because the fall had already begun. We were already in, students were in. Just for your knowledge, our current enrollment, full-time enrollment language only exists in handbooks, and it's 4.5. So we increased it pretty significantly to a 6 credit minimum. So we were all in agreement that made a lot of sense. In this current school year, I continued to work with our subcommittee from the policy committee, our enrollment policy, and in my principals PLC, I was working with a variety of different principals, and this came up, and I hadn't heard this when we did the work last year, but most schools have a different definition for seniors who are on pace to graduate as far as their qualifications for full-time status. So the proposal here for language includes what you'll see as underlined there. So halfway through that second paragraph, Hollis Brookline, for the purpose of ensuring appropriate pace and progress towards earning Hollis Brookline High School diploma full-time, shall be defined as actively enrolled in a minimum of 6 approved, in accordance with policy IMBC, alternative credit options, courses and/or credits for students in grades 9 through 11, and a minimum of 5 approved, in accordance with policy IMBC, alternative credit options, courses and/or credits for students in grades 12. So if a student is on pace to graduate, a senior, grade 12, is on pace to graduate, we felt it appropriate to have a requirement of 5 approved credits as opposed to the 6 for grade student 9 through 12. So if a student is full-time for their 9 through 11 years, hypothetically, they would have at least 18 credits. And if they're on pace to graduate for the 23 credit, 5 approved would allow them to do so in maintaining the full-time enrollment status for, particularly for argument's sake, and this was what all the principals discussed for athletic participation, is really what it
So they have
pertains
to be enrolled in 5 to be.
Right, so that's still an increase from our current practice,
Which is
which is
4.5.
4.5. And specifically for that senior year, when you have students who are on pace to graduate, to enroll them in a class that they wouldn't necessarily need for graduation, just to take part in a sport, seemed inappropriate. And that's what most schools were doing.
So, to have them enroll in a class they don't need just to participate in the sport, so the reason for this is if they don't meet the enrollment policy, they can't be on the sport? Is that the?
Correct, you need to, the NHIAA's requirements are that you are a full-time student in order to partake in athletics.
Okay. Do we have any requirements that someone be a full-time student for any other reason?
So the irony in the full-time, just so we're all on the same page, we allow homeschooled students to take part in athletics, and they're expected to produce grades, and they're expected to produce transcripts as to what they're doing in homeschool. Off the top of my
Does
head.
that definition, like full-time student, does it imply anything else? Does it do?
Is there any other?
Is there any other
So
thing?
for
requirement.
ADM, right, you have to be a
Just
full-time student.
ADM, yeah. Funding, so.
An honor roll. Can't be on the honor roll unless you're a full-time student. It used to be for class rank.
Which within the same work, we looked at our old language for class rank, which is now Latin honors, and we changed that. We actually removed the language for enrollment status because if a student attains a designation for Latin honors, it's about the work that they've done over the course of the body of work for 23 credits. It's not a singular year, so it's not a requirement that you're a full-time student in any given year. It's that you earned a certain GPA over the course of the 23 credits. So that we changed the language in Latin honors because it didn't really apply any as it once did, maybe.
Would this have the unintended consequence of encouraging students, seniors, to take fewer courses?
So again, this is an increase from a current practice. We're at 4.5 right now.
We're not at 6?
We are in policy, we are not yet in practice, because when this was adopted last year, we had already set forth the handbook and program of studies, which included the language. So for students who are participating in the fall sports, it would have been a different requirement than the winter and the spring. So we grandfathered everyone in this current school year to last year's language because that's what existed in the handbooks. So before we go into
So we're
this-
allowed to it in terms of definition, but in terms of how we work with our students, how we build our schedules, what our implicit expectations are, would codifying this have the effect of essentially sanctioning a reduced course load for seniors?
No,
I don't think it does, no. Because again, to Tim's point, we're at 4.5.
if a student's not on pace, if they're not earning the credits that they need to graduate, then they have to take those classes anyway.
But if someone is on pace,
Yep.
do we currently encourage them to take more than 23 credits in a year, in a 4-year period?
They often will do that, but another thing that this provided for was the opportunity for an internship, or.
Isn't that considered a valid alternative credit?
It depends if you apply for an extended learning opportunity or not. Some students just take the initiative and do that. Others want it to count as part of their transcript, or just a work experience. So if there are there are a lot of things to consider for every individual student, and that's part of the conversation that they would have with their school counselor when selecting courses for the following year. So this is an increase. I don't think it codifies anything. I think it is a good balance between increasing that requirement for all the other years and then allowing for greater flexibility if appropriate. But we have plenty of students that graduate with far more than the 23.
So, and I didn't mention this before, but part of the new language, that parenthetical phrase, in accordance with policy IMBC, so the 4.5 used to be limited to Hollis Brookline courses. So that all credit extension now allows for that internship that might be a credit-based, or an ELO that might be a credit-based, or something along those lines, that we said, all right, we'll award you credit for this, we'll count it as an enrollment, so it goes towards your 5 or 6 actually for the, everybody but a senior. So I think it's a much more current and applicable language than existed before, and I think the increase to 5 for the seniors in particular is appropriate, and in practice, I think this is, I think the committee did really good work. I think this hits the mark.
So it's first read. Is there something you'd like to take, those questions about whether or not it codifies
Well,
into?
that's not something that someone can
We can talk about it.
quantitatively answer.
Well, we can approve it for first read and then move on, and then policy can look at it a little bit more and have those questions answered. I mean, or look at it.
I just think it's inappropriate to represent this as an increase. This is a decrease. We've approved a policy that requires 24.
Well,
24 courses.
the diploma requires 23.
No, I'm saying, but the policy that we have currently on the books and approved requires 24.
Which we approved, in August.
Yep.
But prior to that, we didn't really have this.
So this is a decrease. We went through a lot of discussion about what should we have. It wasn't just an arbitrary increase, so this is backtracking. This is not
Okay.
reconsideration.
Okay, let's take a vote on it for first read, and we'll go back to policy and bring it back again next month. All those in favor of first read of JF enrollment? 6-0. And IMBD, this is also high school credit for, I need a motion to accept first reading of policy IMBD, high school credit for the 7th and 8th grade coursework. Moved by Kate.
Second.
Second by Rob. And I'm going to open again to ask Tim to speak to this.
Yep, so, again, same subcommittee, in uncovering gaps and, missing language in policy. So this, was something we came across, it's something that we come across in practice pretty regularly, maybe more so now than in years past. And in reviewing, New Hampshire School Board's sample policy, we uncovered that this is a requirement, that we're supposed to have this policy. We don't have language. This is not a revision of anything.
This is a brand new policy.
This is a brand
for
new
us.
policy. So I'm going to bring your attention not to the policy, but to the language in the law. So I'll give you a starting point. So Ed 306, :26. If you look, I think it follows this in the packet. So there's the the policy and then just following it, there's the law. If you scroll down to the third page at the top, it's F.
Page 3F,
Page 3, yep, and then, the local school board shall adopt a policy that grants acknowledgement, and that's the phrase that, I'm gonna come back to, that grants acknowledgement of achievement to students taking coursework in 7th or 8th grade toward high school graduation, if the course demonstrates district or graduation competencies consistent with regulated high school courses, and the student achieves satisfactory standards of performance. So, at Hollis Brookline, at the high school, we currently do not award credit for coursework completed prior to high school. We acknowledge achievement, oftentimes awarding students prerequisite, not dissimilar to how some colleges or universities might take an AP course. So a student might be allowed to take that next course in sequence. If they took geometry at the middle school, they can take algebra 2 at the high school.
Placement, not credit.
Placement, not a credit. So it might take the place of a required high school course, but you're not necessarily getting geometry credit. You can move on to algebra 2 and move forward the sequence there. So what I did was I put the language of our current practices into policy, and I think maybe the discussion might be, does the board want to have specific language about practice, or does it make sense to have a general statement that, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but sometimes we have policy that's generalized and then more specific language exists in like a program of studies that goes for annual review. So in here, you'll see I use the same language. Hollis Brookline Cooperative School District will grant acknowledgement of achievement to students taking advanced coursework at Hollis Brookline Middle School by qualifying such coursework as potentially meeting prerequisite requirements for Hollis Brookline High School courses. Provided the course demonstrates content requirements consistent, and I matched the language in the law related to high school courses. Student achieves satisfactory standards of performance. School board policies relative to assessment, mastery, and competency shall apply. High school principal shall approve such coursework prior to the student enrolling in HBHS courses. High school credit will not be awarded for coursework completed before the student is enrolled in high school. So that's what we currently do. That's what we've done for years. I will say in my principals PLC, I did poll the group, and any of the schools who have awarded credit for
Credit?
coursework done, anybody who has done that regrets the decision because you can't go back. And it's something that has become problematic in the schools who have chosen to go that route. So I don't have any thoughts on changing what our current practices are, but this is something that is a policy that we should have, and this is our current practice. So I guess it's a discussion as to whether or not we want specific language on practice in policy, or if policy just wants to be Hollis Brookline will grant acknowledgement of achievement.
What would language about practice, what form would that take?
In, say, a program of studies, how we operate.
Like with examples, kind of thing.
Yeah, so more like some of the specific language, how high school credit won't be awarded.
You're basically saying this statement, high school credit will not be awarded, is in the policy, and do we want that to be out of the policy?
Yeah, do we want to have that specific
Right.
language? Sometimes policy.
No, I want that.
I
want it in
think this is
policy.
good the way it is.
Okay.
think this
I
is
don't
good.
want to put that decision on an administrator of making that decision.
I like the way you've done this and that it's in policy. I also think it's really clear and clean, and it's in policy that we're not awarding credit for courses taken before high school, and I think that's.
That's appropriate.
That's appropriate. That's the way this board is, so.
I do have a question. I don't know if you want the motion first and then
No,
discussion?
we took the motion. We're talking about it.
We took a motion on this one?
Yes, Kate made the motion, and we're on the first read, and Rob made the second, and so we're just
Okay.
talking about it.
Okay, I thought that was on the last one. Anyway.
No, we're good. It's on the table.
Anyway, how does the principal, what does the principal do in making that decision? And the point of my question is, do you want to include anyone else in the approval process
Or make it a designee.
and/or, such as department head or something like that, and/or provide any appeal? And I'm not advocating for it, I wanna see.
So when it comes down to students coming from our middle school, taking our middle school coursework, it's a much simpler trade. You take Spanish 2 down here, 8th grade Spanish, you'll have the option of taking.
What grade needs to be achieved, for example? Do you have to have a certain grade or
It's a prerequisite.
just have taken the course?
Yeah, that one's teacher rec. So, and that's all written in the program of studies. So those aren't the ones that come in that are challenging. The ones that are difficult are,
From another
so
school
for
district?
example, yeah, so you might get a course that doesn't match perfectly with a geometry curriculum. It might be advanced math, and it'll include, algebra.
Survey
and some
of.
geometry, yeah, and the student might have the ability, but not necessarily the background, and then a prerequisite wouldn't necessarily have been met based on a review of school X's program
So I
of
guess the
studies.
question is, do you want to have all that responsibility on you? Obviously, you have resources that you can call upon, but no one else has an obligation to take a stand on it other than you at this point. Do you like that?
I think if there was something different, in the end of the day, it would be appealed to me.
No, I'm thinking of whether it's for instance, is it the principal and the related department chair, or is it the principal and the curriculum?
Tim, do you actually review every single student that comes through
Not the
for
ones that
those
come from middle
prerequisites? Or is it just more like this is the, like these are the parameters of which we know the student already took Algebra 1 at the middle
I'd say
school?
95% of the time, we're talking math.
Right.
And that often will involve collaboration with the department chair. Oftentimes, it's in the summer, which when students are transferred in, and that can be challenging. That's internal workings. It's always going to involve that individual. I don't know.
Do you have to, I think what Kate's asking is, do you sign off on everyone, or do they know that if someone came in with this recommendation, does guidance just automatically allow them to schedule it?
No.
Okay.
The only thing I'd recommend, because as Tim just said, the majority of this happens over the summer. So I would just like to see it say the high school principal or designee.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So if he knew he was gonna be away on vacation and Gina's gonna be around that week, or if it's a math question, then Stacy Plummer can come in. I just hate to see one person, because then it puts a
Right.
lot of pressure if for some reason they've got things going on in their personal life. So that's good, and I just add that, Tim, and I think the work you've done on this is great. But it kind of goes back a little bit to Tom's point about coursework. When we think about the last policy, please don't undersell the amount of our kids who go well beyond the 23 credits. Because if I'm a talented middle school student, I could have algebra, geometry, and level 1 of my foreign language.
yeah.
So I've done 3 courses before I've stepped on the high school property. And I'm gonna do 23 more at a minimum, and all we're saying, as a senior, you're not gonna have one. So I don't wanna discount, to Gina's earlier point, how many of our kids go over and above. Like, our problem is not under-scheduling, our problem is over-scheduling. Kids wanting to give up study, kids wanting to, fit so much into that schedule, that it's that balance between, healthy teenager and academics. So, when we go back to policy on the preceding one, just understand that we have quite a few kids that come in with at least one course done.
Yeah. Okay, great. Are we ready to take a vote on this one? First read? All those in favor? 6, did you raise your hand, Tom? Okay, 6-0. Motion carries. Okay.
One suggestion, based on what I'm hearing tonight, I think you're really close. I think that next month, go for second and adopt potentially,
Okay,
because I think the sooner you can get
that's
this
actually a really good point.
established, the better it'll be for
Okay.
For the
upcoming.
upcoming.
Second and that, okay. And just quickly before we go to the process observer, just in terms of agenda building, even though it's not on the agenda, I was wondering if maybe at some point we could put a report out from Krista on RSEC to us?
Sure,
Because
yeah.
we've never really heard that, and I think it would be, or we haven't in my time, it would be really helpful to understand for all the boards to understand that, and Krista wouldn't mind, or you and Krista or whatever,
we'll work together,
to do that, which would be, I think, really helpful. And then, I think I mentioned to you at some point that I'd love to hear a little bit more on Cav Block, because we had a presentation before COVID on the adaptive scheduler and starting that, and some data that we were gonna gather, and we really haven't had that come back to us. And with all this conversation about advisory and potentially, our flex block and our advisory block and all of that, it would be helpful to have a better understanding of, I know the kids love Cav Block, but I'd like to have a better understanding of what Cav Block actually does for our kids. So, I think it's about time to have that.
And the other piece that we had talked about was, and we can probably combine this, new social worker.
Yeah.
And getting an update on guidance. So I think
Yeah.
we can put all that kind
Right,
of
right.
one presentation to cover
Yeah.
what I'll call the social emotional
Right.
pieces.
And I mean, I don't know if Lauren wants to be around for something like that too, so just a presentation on some of that stuff, so.
The other thing is, Holly, if you could send out a list of committees that will require you to make appointments.
Yeah, I have an email to do that,
Okay.
you did miss that in the very beginning. I'm
Okay.
gonna send an email about that, and then I'll ask for feedback, and then we'll assign everybody, in May, at the May meeting, we'll have like a motion to assign everybody, and we're gonna continue on with the committees we're on right now until May.
Okay,
So-
include in that, the fact that there is, you may already have this down, but, contract negotiation.
Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to decide on negotiation committee in May, or if we wanted to wait a couple of months. I'll
Just
probably
to
need
put
do
it,
Zoom.
to make sure it's on people's radar, and I think it would be beneficial to you to have as early notice of people who are interested.
Yeah, okay, I'll put.
So
I'll put
that
it.
you can anticipate workload.
I'll add them to that list. And we have both contracts.
We do?
No, we
No,
don't.
because
So we only
they added a
have,
fourth year on.
okay, we're done with HESA, because we just approved it.
opened it last year.
Done with
this
HESA.
year.
So
You
just
you
teachers.
bought an extra year on that one with the
Right,
fourth
so
year.
it's the professional staff.
Yeah.
We have the course enrollment projections in May too.
Course enrollment injection, exactly, in May. Okay, and then do we keep a list of all the policies that trigger these check-in things?
What do you mean by check-in?
Well, we have so many policies that are like, the board needs to review do we have that, do we have a document of some sort that like lays that out?
So for instance, we have to look at stipends, we have to look at,
Right, like, I mean, right now, we can't even access the policy site to be like, let's do a search for, annual reviews or whatever, but I was wondering if I would be willing to work on something like that, to create something like that, so that.
So I've started my own just for
Right,
my own annual calendars. Maybe, I don't know, I'd be happy, maybe
no, it would
I'll
be
shoot a
really
policy.
helpful to do that, because you always ask about the agenda as chair, and
Right.
what I do is I go back and check the minutes from the last 2 or 3 years, and with COVID, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just ignoring 2020, because, the agendas were so off, so I go back to 2019, but I'm wondering if we wouldn't benefit from having just like a chart that, every month, so.
Yeah, I think long-term, that would really help boards and administrations, because I, like you, just go back and get on that historical roll and find out what needs to come up, but one master list would be a good thing.
Okay. So maybe we can work on that, that's not anything for next month, but, all right, is there anything else that anyone else would?
Just that, Rob and Kate, I just need your signature for manifest before you leave. Okay.
Okay, and a report out from the process observer.
sure, aren't you glad you asked?
Yeah, it's a little bit later than we expected.
We got off base a little bit with the non-public lasting a little bit longer than anticipated. I think the biggest thing is the reports. Right now, we tend to take longer than what's being allocated, and that, I think a part of that is that a lot of the information is presented for the benefit of the public, because we've already seen the reports, we've read them, and a lot of it is there. I think the question that needs to be asked is, do we see the value in doing that, and if so, schedule more time for it? Or say we're more concerned with shortening the meeting, in which case, what we've done in previous years to, when that was done, is say, the first thing is, you've all got the reports, do you have any questions about anything? So there's two different approaches. The approach we take now is the long form, and if we're going to continue doing that, I think you need to allow additional time for it.
That's good
Other than that, it was very well run. There was one board member who kept stalling things, and I don't know what you can do about them.
Yeah. We try very hard. Okay.
Well, I think those board members are very trying too.
She's a co-op meeting.
And a long one, okay.
I need coffee when you got here.
I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Krista, second?
Can we discuss it?
Second by Rob, all in favor? And that's a 6-0. Motion carries. Good night, everyone. That was a long one, but we got